Thanks, Coulter. Well, people often will say to you, so I got good news, and I have good news, and I have bad news. Which do you want first? Unfortunately, today I'm not going to give you that choice. You're going to get the bad news, and then hopeful news, and then a call to action. So, and unfortunately, I'm the one who gets to bring the bad news today. So, what do we have here? You should have received emails from Ken Bishop with some information about the Department of Labor releasing its audit quality study with some of the information and a link to the actual report. I would encourage all of you to go out and read it. 191 riveting pages. And many of those pages are an appendix with a lot of data and statistics, especially those of you who are auditors and all of you as state board members who oversee the regulation of the profession. There's a lot of important information in this report, and I truly would encourage you to go out and read it. We did provide for you in your binder an executive summary with some of the ugly facts and some of the recommendations from the DOL. This is a study that they conduct periodically, and this one has been a long time coming. They did it on 2011 data, did their work over the past few years, and then just recently released it. So what we want to do is a little bit of a deeper dive into the study. It was just released. This session, I don't know if you looked at the agenda a few weeks ago, was an intro to the CPE session, breakout sessions that Maria and Jessica and others are going to have. So we do encourage you to go to those sessions. But this was important enough and timely enough that we felt the need to take that out and slot this session in and share some information with you. What did DOL do? They looked at 400 plan audits from the 2011 5,500 filings. And just to give you order of magnitude, there's over 7,300 licensed CPAs who do more than 81,000 employee benefit plan audits. But I understand a 400 audit sample is a statistically valid sample. And they split it into strata this time. This is something they've done a little differently than they have in the past, to split it into firms who do 1 to 2 employee benefit plan audits, those that do 3 to 5 as a strata, 6 to 24, and so on. So there are 6 strata, and there were important reasons they did that, because they felt that they, based on history, that they were wanted to look at the information by firms who do certain numbers of audits. And the results probably aren't surprising, but we'll get into that here in a minute. It was a random sample within the strata, and as part of their study, they did some key things that are very important to you as state board members. Is they looked at licensing status. Were these firms licensed to do these audits by their state boards? And they also did a correlation between peer review and the peer review results and the quality of the audits done. So very interesting and very important work that they've done here. So now we get to some alarming stats, and it's very eye-opening, and it's kind of a sad statement for the profession, but let's look at it and let's look at what we're doing to improve things. So 4 out of 10 of the audits that they looked at were deficient. And these are not minor deficiencies, these were what they would consider a major deficiency in the audit, 1 or more major deficiencies in the audit. But 39% had major deficiencies, 61% were compliant or had minor deficiencies. I'm not sure what I'm pointing at, but it's not working. Okay, so here's another alarming statistic. This is the trend with their prior studies. They did a study in 88, 97, 2004, 2014. And that 39% that was on the prior slide, that shows up in 2014. But what we're seeing is a negative trend. So instead of an improvement in audit quality on employee benefit plan audits, we have a negative trend, which should be alarming for all of us. A few additional findings. Excuse me. 17% of the audit reports specifically didn't comply with ERISA reporting and disclosure requirements. Things like the wording of the report and some of the disclosures that are required. I will say, those of you who take the time to go back and look at the appendix, and what they've done is they've split out the study by audit area. So you'll see planning or internal control or debt. One thing that I found interesting is, yes, there's issues specifically with things related to employee benefit plan audits, but folks, there's issues with very basic audit things like internal control, planning, debt, things, and some of it you'll see because of the detail they'll provide in almost every category. There's a decent number of firms where the issue, the deficiency, was no work performed in that audit area. So you have firms doing an audit with no work performed in internal control. That's disconcerting at best. A big theme in this study is that not the smaller the firm, don't hear me wrong here, but the smaller the firm's employee benefit plan practice, the fewer they do, the greater overall deficiency rate. So that shouldn't be a surprise, but I will also tell you that 95% of firms audit 25 plans or less, and only 1% audit 100 or more. There are a significant number of firms that do 1 or 2, or maybe 3 or 5 employee benefit plan audits. And the statistics in those strata, they're not great in any of the stratas, but in those strata are particularly alarming. So something that should be considered. We also note a nexus that there's an increasing number of limited scope employee benefit plan audits. So that number that are being done as limited scope is increasing. And I think you can draw a corollary between that and some of what I just mentioned, which is firms not doing complete audits, maybe not doing the internal control work, not doing the work that they should be doing, possibly because they're disclaiming an opinion. So that they shouldn't be. They should be doing the complete audit even though they're disclaiming the opinion. But I think that there is something to be said for that being an issue. And lastly, one of the major findings was a concern by Department of Labor that peer review, clean peer reviews, is not always an indication that a firm is doing quality employee benefit plan audit work. And a concern about how the peer review system is actually working and is it being effective. You're going to find a panel a little later today specifically on peer review. And I think the profession, I think AICPA, I know that we are very concerned about that. And as this information has been coming out about the quality, and these are ongoing conversations we've been having, we know that this is an area of issue, and AICPA is all over it, and you're going to hear a lot of things that they're already doing to address this. Here, this are the stratas, as I mentioned earlier, but these are deficient audits so by strata of firm, the number and percentage of deficient audits with 5 or more major deficiencies where they received a clean peer review report. Especially alarming is the strata with 1 to 2, because if you realize employee benefit plans are a must-select engagement, so if they're peer reviewed, there's a very high likelihood that the same audit that the DOL inspected was also had to have been selected by the peer reviewer. So there's a significant concern there. Okay, but here's, I guess, a little bit of good news. I'm going to swing a little bit that direction. It is also noted in the report that firms who are members of AICPA's Employee Benefit Plan Audit Quality Center do seem to perform better at employee benefit plan audits. So the information and the benefits that they're receiving by being part of that center are positive and are helpful. So I did want to also share that information with you. So I'm not going to go through these in details because everything that I have from here on is actually in your binder. But I did want to hit on a few of their recommendations and share those with you. So under enforcement, and those in red have a state board nexus. And this is, I know Ken and Walter mentioned earlier, that the good side of this is that the DOL recognizes now that, and Maria will touch on this, that the state boards have been left out of the equation. They really have been sharing very few. When they do their inspections, very few of those make their way to the state boards, so the state boards can then deal with it through remediation or enforcement with the firms. So we have some things coming down the pike to help with that. So working more closely with NASBA and the state boards was on their list of 11 recommendations. Working with AICPA to improve the peer review program. You see at the bottom to make sure that the state boards know if a firm doesn't have an acceptable peer review when they did a DOL ERISA audit. Targeting their inspections, focusing on the firms that do fewer employee benefit plan audits or those that have high dollar volume and lower numbers of audits was also important. Regulatorily and legislatively, DOL also has aspirations. I will say that the things that you see here on the screen, the chance that some of these things would happen, some of these recommendations would move forward, are not high because they do require federal legislation. And they have tried in the past to gain more control. Because right now, if you don't realize, the Department of Labor doesn't have jurisdiction over CPA firms. They cannot penalize, they cannot require CPAs who do this work to have CPE or sanction the firms. They can only go against the sponsors. So they do that, and sometimes they require the sponsor to get a new auditor. So there are things they can do, but they have never had jurisdiction over the CPAs. I do think maybe not a repeal of limited scope audits, but possibly further regulation on their use could be coming down the pike and might be a good thing. Okay, also on outreach, as you can expect, they do need to get the word out. And one of the ways they need to get the word out is through the state boards. They work with AICPA and the AICPA Audit Quality Center, but many CPA firms, especially what you'd call the dabblers, those that don't do a lot of these audits, aren't members of the AICPA. And this is where the state board link is crucial, working with the state boards to help them understand that it may be not a good thing to just do one or two of these. So we want to work with DOL and with you to get that word out through your newsletters or through special correspondence. In fact, you will, all as state boards, be receiving letters from the DOL with some of the same information that I'm sharing with you today, and their call to action for you. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Maria to share with us some of the specific things that we're working on.
So good morning. As Colleen indicated, the Audit Quality Study report recommended that the DOL work more closely with both the accountancy boards and NASBA to ensure that the quality audit starts improving in this area. And the good news is that for over a year, NASBA has been working with the DOL and the AICPA to understand both how the referral process works and then also how maybe we could share more information going forward to make it more effective. I've got to hit the right place. So the not so good news is that over the past 10 years, the vast majority of deficient audit referrals have not been provided to the state boards of accountancy. As the slides will show, Since 2005, the DOL made 507 referrals from their routine audit reviews, and of those, 481 went to the AICPA directly and not to the state boards, and only 89 went to all 55 boards collectively. And in addition, about 65% of the referrals that go to the AICPA conclude with a remedial corrective action letter. And so the boards don't find out about those deficient audits because that discipline is confidential because of the AICPA bylaws. And these same statistics hold true for the current audit quality study. So the DOL has made, I'm having the same problem. The DOL has made 145 referrals from these deficient audits, and of those, 132 have gone to the AICPA, and only 13 have gone to the state boards. So I think that kind of sums up the situation of where the state boards have been. Sorry. So there's definitely room for improvement in how this information is shared. And under this current process, many states have never even received one referral from the DOL in the past 10 years. And most of them have received maybe one or two. And these are for audits that were, deficient audits that were performed by licensees in their state. And without the knowledge of these deficient audits being performed by licensees, there's no way that the state boards could really start acting to correct the problem or discipline the licensees themselves. And that's a conversation that we've had with the DOL. It's also important to note that when the boards have been referred these DOL cases in the past, they've taken appropriate action. This chart shows some interesting facts about the outcome of those 89 referrals that were sent by the DOL, but it also points out a few areas that would be improved dramatically with better collaboration among the boards, the DOL, NASBA, and the AICPA. Now, for instance, over 20% of the referrals that were sent by the DOL were never received by the state boards. And that wasn't just like one board not getting any that they were sent. Every single state that we looked at that had received referrals also had a category that they had never received the referral that the DOL had indicated to us. And another 14% were of auditors that the board did not have jurisdiction over, so the referral went to the wrong board, or there was insufficient evidence to open a complaint. Obviously an improved referral system and investigative file sharing would greatly help improve those numbers and also empower the boards to take action as needed. Of the referrals that did make it to the appropriate board with proper jurisdiction, 42% were closed with disciplinary action, 6% were closed with corrective action and compliance, and 36 are now in progress. So increased collaboration is exactly what we've been working on with both the AICP and the DOL. We're developing a better referral system with the DOL to ensure that all of the deficient audit referrals will go to the state boards directly, and that they be made to the proper contact at the state board so they don't get lost in the referral process. We've also been working with the Inspector General's office and the DOL, so the DOL will begin obtaining consents from the auditors to allow the DOL to share their investigative file and findings with the state board upon referral. And we really think that will expedite the disciplinary process. The DOL, they are experts in this field, so it'll be great to get a package that shows the work that they did and the findings that they had to allow the boards to open a complaint and kind of jumpstart the process. This kind of consent is also something that boards could obtain from the respondent themselves directly if the DOL was not successful in getting that. And we've also been working with the AICPA on a cooperative enforcement process that similarly would allow the AICPA, with the consent of the auditor, to share its investigative files with the boards. So this outreach with NASBA will continue. We'll have more details about how this referral process and the consent and file sharing arrangements can work in the future. And then we'll provide that relevant documentation and the specifics to the board as soon as it's finalized. We didn't want to kind of jump the gun by giving too many specifics that aren't exactly worked out. And we're also going to be reaching out. We're also going to be reaching out to the EDs of each board to confirm who the proper contact at your board would be for the referrals, because it may differ state to state and may not necessarily be the ED. So please keep an eye out for that email, and I'd really appreciate it if you would respond to that. That will help the process move forward. The bottom line is that the key to successful enforcement in this area is going to be the cooperation of and the information sharing by the various agencies that are involved in identifying the deficiencies, correcting them, and then ensuring that only competent CPAs are licensed to perform this work. And so that will be a continued focus of NASBA and my group in particular with working with the DOL and the AICPA going forward. Thank you.
So briefly, this is going to be the call to action. The boards have been kind of looped out, right? They haven't been involved. DOL has not been referring, and when they have referred, it's just been a letter with no, you can't go back to them and get information. So now we're setting up a system to where they hopefully will be able to share, with consent, will be able to share information. We're working with AICPA to get you some information to help too. So now it's going to be important when the next audit quality study comes along. If this plays out as we hope it will, the state boards will be in the loop, and the state boards will be in a position to play a major role in ensuring that we have quality audits. Because believe me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are employee benefit plan audits, but we also know that we need to be looking at single audits and some of the other more specific types of audits that are done. So I know AICPA is working hard. They have audit quality initiatives. They have plans coming from different fronts to also work on audit quality. But as regulators, all of the state boards play a huge role here. So it's very important that we take it seriously. Maria and I and others, we're very happy to spend more time talking to you about this, exploring it. If you want us to come talk to your board, we're happy to do that too. I know we need to go to a break, but are there any burning questions? We're here over the next few days too, if you want to chat with us face-to-face personally. But are there any specific questions? No? Everybody just needs that break. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we take a break, I just want to remind everybody, in your binder is the evaluation form for this conference. Please make sure that you go for each session, start filling that out so that it can be handed in. And I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day on Friday that Tom Kinney will have a raffle related to who fills those out. Now, we're running a little bit behind. The break is scheduled from 10:15 to 10:45. Let's come back about 10:50. That'll give you about 20 minutes for a break. Thank you.